Welcome to Compass Points, the weekly podcast for CompassKnox.com. CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more.
Welcome to Compass Points, a podcast about Knoxville and Knox County government, politics, business, education, and just about anything else that grabs our attention. I'm Scott Barker, the editor of Compass, a subscription-based website and newsletter where we report on all this stuff and more. You can find us at CompassKnox.com, joined by Compass co-founder Jesse Mayshark, podcaster extraordinaire who also is the host of Headlights, which is the podcast of his other journalistic venture, The Progressive South. Welcome, Jesse.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Ho, ho, ho.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is that time of year again.
It's funny. I have never been Christian a day in my life, as we've probably talked about here at one point or another. I grew up in a family of practicing Buddhists, and yet somehow I am the most pro-Christmas person in this podcast studio. I love Christmas. We put up our tree this week. I've got eggnog at home. Like I'm all in on Christmas. I love the lights this time of year. I love Christmas music. I've got a whole Christmas music playlist. So unlike Scroogey McScott over here, I'm very pro-Christmas as a cultural holiday.
Well, I'm pro-Christmas. It's just, I tell you one thing. I am a tad bit cynical about the commercialization of Christmas. I'm definitely with Linus on all that stuff. So, I do love Christmas, but I'm much more of a. We were talking about before we came on the air. We were talking about Christmas songs, and Jesse, you asked me what's your favorite Christmas song? Or I guess it was Seth who asked me what was your favorite Christmas song. I'm sitting there racking my brain because the song I most associate with Christmas is probably the Hallelujah chorus from the Messiah, because we went to the Messiah every year. My sister was a soprano, or she still is a soprano, but she was a professional and would always sing the Hallelujah chorus around the.
I'll add a fun anecdote to that,
and so I mean that's probably what I associate most with Christmas. But it's always the traditional Christmas carols that. And I'm talking about really, First Noel and things like that.
Oh, Holy Night. There's a great one.
Holy Night. Yeah, those are, So I'm not completely bah humbug. I'm just bah.
maybe bah hum. But like just on the Hallelujah chorus, it's one of my dad's biggest pet peeves is when you go somewhere because you're supposed to stand up when it comes on, yeah. And my dad hates it because it's not because of the song. It's because some king at some point when it was first introduced stood up, so everybody stood up, and that became the tradition of you have to stand up. And it drives my dad insane every time we go to a Christmas Eve service or whatever. He's like, I hate standing up for this. He's like, I love the song, I just hate standing up for this. That's my dad in a nutshell. If anybody ever wanted to know, but yeah, I would say I've run the middle here. My kids are getting to the age where the super fun part of Christmas has started to phase out a little bit. Like the young kids' Christmas has always been great. Like that's one of the greatest specific memories and years of when they were little and they get super excited. But I'm also with Scott in the like this Black Friday starts in October now thing, and and you guys know that I live near the Westtown Mall, which if you argue that the malls are dead, not this one, not this time of year, like it adds 10 minutes to get in and out of my part of town just to try to get around the mall, and I'm over that. But it's also parades this weekend. Well, we just finished these parades, and we hope that everybody had a great time at them and that you came out and saw us. And I love a parade. I just love doing a parade. I'm so excited about the parade tonight. I'm doing the IBK parade. we're taping on Friday, and then Saturday, we were doing the Rocky Hill Parade with you guys, and I'm so excited about it. It's my favorite thing about the season, and so.
Yeah, I'm not going to be on the float cussing people. Don't get me wrong.
You can. It's up to you.
Well, no.
I'll have the music playing loud enough that they won't hear you.
Me.
Right.
Well, nobody cares what I have to say anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yet they tune in week after week to listen to you talk here.
Well, we might as well move on into some of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to hit on tell you why retired Marine General and former White House Chief of Staff John Kelly is going to be coming to Knoxville after the new year begins. We'll tell you why and why we care. The Tennessee Valley Authority received a $400 million grant last week. We'll talk about why. Also, as a Christmas gift to producer Seth Barber, who's we've already heard from, we'll talk about the hemp settlement that came about on selling hemp-derived products in Tennessee. We're going to start out talking about school stuff, though. One of the issues is charter school evaluations came through to Knox County's two public charter schools, and there was also a lawsuit filed regarding charter schools, and we'll jump into that one too. We'll start out though with the school board and their vote on immigration issues of all things. The board put together, as they do every year, the legislative priorities for the coming year, and by that, it's kind of shorthand for the wish list. Since we are talking about Christmas, the wish list that the school board has for the state legislature, the things that they would like to see the legislature do, and in this case, not do. There is a bill in the House. It's already passed the Senate. It is in the House that would allow, not require, but allow school systems in the state of Tennessee to collect the information on the immigration status of students, ban them from attending public schools, and or charge them tuition for attending public schools. That opposition to that bill is widespread in many quarters of the community, and people who are opposed to it for the last couple of months have been going to school board meetings and demanding that the school system take a stand against that. And the school board did, in fact, they did take a stand. It's not the sturdiest of stands, but they took a stand against these types of bills. The bill, the specific bill wasn't mentioned in this, but on a 6-3 vote, bipartisan 6-3 vote, the school board voted to affirm that the idea of public education is education for all students, basically no matter what, and also that they would urge lawmakers to oppose measures that would force them to collect such immigration data on their students. And it was one of those cases where overwhelming public sentiment kind of swayed. I think swayed a couple of the board members in the vote. There was opposition. There one thing that was universal about it was they all expressed kind of a regret that state politics intruded into school issues like that doesn't happen every year, but
that's just normal.
Yeah, but
well, and what they were doing here was voting on their legislative priorities for next year, and they made this one of those priorities, and they do that every year. I mean, they may not like engaging with politics, but the school board has long recognized that they need to engage in politics because the state legislature is so capable of doing things that in one way or another affect and sometimes interfere with or create complications for their own operations. And so this, I think you're right that there are definitely members of the board who don't really like getting into these issues that are sort of broader philosophical, political issues, but it's also just kind of inevitable.
Yeah. I mean, almost every member said something to that effect. John Butler, who voted for this measure opposing the bill, really lamented it. He said he would have been happy with a measure that just said we support education for all, which is but he did vote on this. It wasn't that. But virtually every single board member who spoke, and just about all of them, said something to that effect. Patricia Fontenot Ridley said, she was kind of the one that said, "Listen, they decided to make school boards partisan panels." And so we're a partisan board, whether we like it or not, and so politics is going to be part of it. And she probably took the most realistic stance of any of them. She is a Democrat like Butler who voted for passage. The two of the Republicans on the 5 Republicans, a majority on the school board, voted. It was kind of interesting. They ended up voting in favor of it. Both Travis Wright and Chair Christy just passed the first time they took the vote. They both were among those who lamented the intrusion of politics into the schools, but and initially passed. But then it was obvious that if somebody didn't vote, it was going to fail no matter what. So they turned around and voted for it. I think they didn't want to be seen as excluding children from getting an education, and which is what Butler talked about in a pretty powerful. He was pretty powerful in his support for teaching every child in Knox County and welcoming them into schools. The Republicans who voted against this, and one of them was Betsy Henderson, who talked about how politics shouldn't be part of it. Of course, last year or earlier this year, she went to the legislature to speak out in favor of the voucher program that Governor Bill Lee pushed through, even though the school board had not endorsed that as their position last year.
Right. She's not shy about taking a pretty strong political position.
Yeah. And she's running for county mayor.
Yeah.
Steve Triplett made kind of an interesting comment. He basically said, "You know what? I never pay attention to the media. I don't watch the media. Don't pay attention to it. But the media stirred this up," and he blamed I guess us and our colleagues for stirring this up, even though we just covered who came to school board meetings.
I mean, it was really stirred up by a pretty strong coalition of groups, including SOCM, the Knox County Education Coalition, and others, and immigrant rights groups, who all came together. They had well-organized and well-attended rallies before both of the school board meetings last week on Monday and Thursday. They sent out lots of press releases to all of us in the media. So, I mean, not that there would be anything wrong with the media, quote unquote, stirring things up, telling people that this bill has been proposed and here's the impact that it could have. I mean, if you really want to look at the actual origin of the issue, it's the fact that a bill was proposed in the legislature and passed the state Senate last year that would allow school districts to, that would first of all require school districts to determine the immigration status of all students, and then allow them, it's not compulsory, but allow them to either charge those students tuition or exclude them. So, we didn't start the fire, as Billy Joel says.
No, we didn't. And a lot of people did come. And it wasn't just members of those groups. There were teachers who came and spoke out, parents who did, students who did, and it was kind of interesting. Albert Liu, the non-voting student representative on the school board, spoke about the. He rarely speaks. I mean, he doesn't have a vote, and he rarely speaks on issues. But this, he did address this and about how it would be perceived by students. Who don't, basically he said they don't care about politics, but or for the most part, and but they do know when somebody passes something that basically says you don't like me, and but anyway, the measure did pass. Of course, this has no bearing whatsoever on whether the bill actually passes. And the bill, of course, was proposed to invite a court challenge because it is in direct contradiction of a 1982 Supreme Court decision.
Right, and I think that's an important thing to emphasize because I think there was some confusion among people who heard that the school board was debating this as if they were advocating creating something new, like, oh, now you're going to provide education to undocumented students. How can we afford that, et cetera? The school system already provides education regardless of immigration status because they have to under existing Supreme Court precedent, as you're saying. And so what the school board is actually advocating for here is the existing legal status quo,
right,
at least unless and until the Supreme Court changes that, which, as you're saying, is what this bill seems designed to try to do. They want to get this issue back to the U.S. Supreme Court, hoping that with the now very conservative majority there, they might rule differently. Because that 1982 decision was a split. It was a 5-4 decision in 1982. And so I think there's a feeling that if we get this back to this set of justices, they might rule differently.
Yeah. In fact, it's explicit in the bill that that's exactly what they're doing. It's not kind of it's not. I mean, they're explicit in the bill about challenging the Supreme Court decision, which was it was a split decision. It was one of the Tyler, Texas, I believe, was the jurisdiction that was party to it, and their school system, they were doing the same thing there in the early 80s when illegal immigration or undocumented migrants were seen more as an issue of border states rather than the entire country, which is of course why one of the reasons the Republicans are really pushing this. One of the interesting things was, though, and this kind of gets to the broader discussion of immigration, even the dissents in that particular case reaffirmed that anyone who is, with only the exception of a couple of exceptions like diplomats, that anyone who is in the United States is subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and the states within the United States. So that's been kind of a talking point of people who want to radically change how immigration is done here.
Well, in birthright citizenship, which is yet another case that's now at the Supreme Court.
Yeah. But anyway, that law, and of course, if Tennessee's this bill passes and becomes law, you've got, first of all, you're going to have a legal challenge. I mean, that's a given. And of course, the question is going to be whether it goes into effect before, after, or if it goes into, if the judge in the case allows the law to go into effect while it's being litigated, or they keep it from going into effect while it's being litigated. There's all that. A lot of things can happen down the road, but of course, like you said, rejecting this bill would be just keeping the status quo, because one of the arguments that is made on the side supporting the bill is that that these kids essentially eat up tax money, that this is it costs us tax money to do this. Well, one of the things that opponents of the bill point out is people who are undocumented pay taxes.
Yeah,
and especially in Tennessee, where most of education is funded through sales taxes, one way or another. At least the state and local dollars are sales tax dollars, and there is no sales tax exemption for undocumented immigrants.
Yeah.
They pay sales taxes just like anyone else does. So,
and they also pay property taxes through. Now you can say, well, a lot of the undocumented population are more likely to be renters than homeowners, but renters pay property taxes. Property taxes get paid out of their rent. I mean, absolutely. Anybody who is living and working in Tennessee is contributing to the funding of public education here, regardless of their immigration status.
Oh, absolutely. And but one of the things now, and this is going to make the all school board members happy, is it's now in the hands of the state legislature. And again, this is kind of it would be a funding issue if Knox County decided to do this too, because it is not cheap. They'd basically have to set up a whole office to handle the vetting someone's immigration status. I mean, and
it could be very challenging, because you could, and probably we do, have two siblings from the same family, where one of them might be, because of birthright citizenship, an American citizen, but they might have an older sibling who was born elsewhere and then came here. And so you could create this really complex system. Now, one thing that the proponents of the bill say is that, well, it wouldn't be compulsory. It would just be an option for school districts to do this. It would be compulsory for them to ascertain the immigration status of every student, which would be that kind of bureaucratic headache. But they wouldn't have to charge them tuition the way the bill's written. However, one can imagine that if this bill did pass, if it was eventually upheld by the Supreme Court, the state could find ways. The state could well say, well, you can educate these students if you want, but we're not going to allocate state funding for them. And so that's going to increase the local burden to take care of them. I would not be at all surprised to see that kind of proposal down the line.
Yeah. But it kind of last little bit on this topic for now is one of the teachers who spoke at last Thursday's school board meeting made a very practical argument against it. He said, listen, it's hard enough to get kids to bring in a permission slip to go on a field trip. Can you imagine what it would be like to get them to bring in their immigration documentation and get families to provide that, even if they wanted to, and he's got a point. I mean, one of the things is whenever you start saying, okay, we have to check everyone's immigration status, that means everyone. And so it's not just, to be blunt, these kids are Hispanic, so we're gonna check their status. That person's last name's Rodriguez. We're gonna check their immigration status. That's not the way it works. They check everybody, and then which Kat found out when because they train drivers. Drivers get their CDC licenses. The rules got really tight on immigration status and getting a commercial driver's license, and it takes a long time. They have to vet everyone. They can't just and they haven't even had any undocumented immigrants or to apply, but they still have to vet everyone. And it's slowed down the process and has really slowed down their hiring, which contributed to shortage of drivers, which forced them to cut back on their routes just this month.
Right, and you can imagine a number of parents, just on a moral stance, even if they are legal citizens, will delay and be a pain in helping that process along when and if it does come. And they're like, I don't want to fill out this paperwork because I think it's wrong, not because I have any issue with my status. I'm just like, what, screw you guys. I'm going to waste your time and money because this is ridiculous.
Well, and this is and we'll move on to the next topic, but this is something that we've seen in like these cities where there have been these big surges of immigration enforcement. One thing it has led to is that for people who are American citizens, people who were born here, but because of how they look, because of the color of their skin or what their last name is or whatever, perceive themselves quite reasonably as being likely targets for somebody just grabbing them on the street. A lot of people are now carrying their passports with them precisely because of that. And so, you can't have this kind of regime of ascertaining everybody's exact status without it affecting everybody, where everybody has to constantly be able to prove at any given time who you are and where you're from. And, that is not, for the most part, a regime that we have had in the United States. And I don't necessarily think it's one that lots of people who are American citizens, would really relish.
Yeah. You mentioned passports. Yeah, people are carrying passports if they have them.
Right.
The vast majority of Americans don't
even have a passport, right? Yeah.
So, they're going to carry around their birth certificate, which is the only other true. I mean, if you're a natural born citizen, that is the document that says I'm an American citizen, is your birth certificate.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, I don't carry around my birth certificate.
No. I'm envisioning seeing kindergartners with real IDs all of a sudden.
Right? For sure.
Like in your backpack, you have your real ID and your coloring pencils.
I did go get my real ID.
I have a moral objection to it, so I haven't gotten mine yet.
So I don't, but I had to renew my driver's license anyway. And
I got it last time I renewed my license.
Fun fact that I did not know until I renewed my license last week. Your renewal date, when you do have to get it, when it does expire, your expiration date is not your birthday, which I always thought it was.
It used to be.
They've changed it now, so it's on the date when you get your renewal. That will be your expiration date 8 years from now. So when I went to get mine, I found out from the woman in the clerk's office that my birthday is January 5th, and my license actually expires December 29th because for whatever reason I got my license early 8 years ago, which I never do things like that. In fact, it's a miracle I didn't wait until after it had expired to get it. And now, 8 years from now, it will be early December a month before my birthday.
Set an alarm for yourself.
8 years from now, you really think I'm going to remember this 8 years from now? So 8 years from now, if we're still around, we're doing the podcast, whatever. And I get busted for driving on an expired license.
Sorry, folks, we don't have an episode this week. Scott's in jail right now. He didn't renew his license on time because of the date change.
I just get a ticket.
He's been deported, but we're not sure where to.
Since we're rambling on it, that used to be one of the techniques I taught my bar staff.
Yeah,
is a way to check one of the ways to identify a fake ID is that if somebody kind of messes with their birth date year. Yeah. And makes it, turns it from a 5 to a 1 or whatever, the last digit of their birth year. It's like, hey, because it used to be 5 years. 5 years from, check the expiration date. If something's looking a little off, check the expiration date. And if it's the same date, but not in 5-year increments, then you know it's a fake ID, which is now out the window. They also issue paper IDs, which is ridiculous too. But anyway, sorry, tangent.
Okay, well, we will move on. That was a kind of a nice little aside thing. Sorry about that. Another thing that the school system did this week, the school board did this week, was accept the evaluations of Knox County's 2 charter schools. They were 2 very different evaluations. Emerald Academy, which was Knox County's first charter school and has been around for a decade, just got renewed for another decade. Their evaluation was kind of boringly good. I mean, it was good across the board. They only had there was only one category that they had any kind of trouble with, and that was chronic absenteeism. What school doesn't have a problem with chronic absenteeism? But they got glowing marks for meeting or exceeding expectations. And one of the things, the school system, it's under state law, they evaluate charter schools under several categories on academics, on financing, on culture, and on kind of the organizational setup and how they are. The other charter school was unlike Emerald, is brand new. Last year was their first year. It's Knoxville Preparatory School, Knoxville Prep. And they had lots of problems last year. This is the parent organization is also runs Chattanooga Prep. Chattanooga Prep went into turmoil. They had a teacher who was charged with various sex crimes involving children. Turns out that this teacher also wasn't a certified teacher in Tennessee, and neither were 21 of his colleagues. So they had
which made it look a little bit more like a systemic issue. Like one teacher getting through uncertified, there might be various ways that your HR system could miss that, but 21 is a little harder to explain.
Yeah, and all this stuff was happening. These problems, even though Knox Prep is a separate school from Chattanooga Prep, bled over into Knoxville Prep. Of course, Knoxville Prep started out last year with just the 5th grade, so they've got sixth grade, and so that was the only class they had. They didn't have nearly as many teachers, obviously, as Chattanooga Prep. There was turnover in the principal. They had issues with finances. I mean, various things. Won't go into detail on those. For example, they never had enough cash on hand. You're supposed to have cash on hand to operate for a month, and they didn't. The operational end of it, a lot of it was reporting issues. They apparently were not in compliance with the federal laws against discrimination against students with disabilities, which Catherine Bach, school board member, mentioned. The only mention that anybody made of these, they approved both the evaluations, and Knoxville Preps was accept the the evaluation, but they need improvement. Basically, their evaluation was needs improvement. Emerald Academies was in compliance. So anyway, there were various things. The evaluation did note that Knoxville Prep has either corrected all of these deficiencies or has a plan to do so, and so it's they've expanded this year to now they have 6th and 7th grade. They're going to be adding a grade a year till they're 6 through 12, so that is kind of where they stand. And then there was also another development with charter schools, and that was Knox County Schools has been sued by an organization that wants to open a charter school, and that is Wilberforce Academy. They say they are going to be an overtly religious charter school.
I think the phrase was unapologetically Christian.
Unapologetically Christian, and which is not allowed under state law. They wrote a letter of intent to open a charter school, and then said basically, well, we have to affirm that we're not going to be a sectarian school. We can't, so therefore we can't apply. We can send in our notice to apply, but we can't apply. And so then they sued the state and the school board for not allowing them to do this. That brings up all kinds of issues that we'll talk about in a second. But this it's really interesting that they are doing it kind of that way. Emerald Academy, for example, is operated by Emerald Youth Foundation, and they are an overtly Christian organization, but they have to operate the school.
Right. They set up the school as an independent entity that is non-sectarian, non-religious.
Right. And so that's how, if anybody's listening and wondering, well, Emerald Youth Foundation, that's why. Emerald Youth Foundation, apparently decided that educating children was worth not making it a sectarian school, and they could have opened their own.
Well, and getting public
school.
Funding for it, which is the real key here. Like both Emerald Youth and the Wilberforce people would be perfectly free to open as Christian a school as they want. We have plenty of unapologetically Christian schools in Knox County. It's just that they have not been able to get public funding, although that has, of course, started to shift now with the school vouchers, where we do have school vouchers going to overtly religious schools, mostly Christian ones, but also in Knox County, there's both a Muslim and a Jewish school that are also on the list to, eligible to receive voucher funding, which, of course, is part of the argument in this lawsuit, is that it doesn't make sense for the state to say that you can't be a Christian or overtly religious charter school, but also we're going to send taxpayer money to all these other Christian schools, which, to be fair, definitely you can see some contradictions there.
Yeah, you can. And I guess, the distinction, if you want to make it this is the vouchers are kind of like scholarships. And,
right.
You can.
They're scholarships to an existing independent school, whereas charter schools are mostly, they're basically public schools. They are primarily publicly funded. They can have, like Emerald Youth does, a supporting foundation that provides additional funding, but they're basically funded through both state and local tax dollars, like regular public schools. So yeah, and that is a difference. Like there's a difference between Christian Academy of Knoxville being an established private Christian school that mostly gets money from tuition from, private tuition from families, that now some number of students are getting some state checks to go and spend there. And a school like Wilberforce wants to create, which is Wilberforce is saying, we want to open a school that is going to directly proselytize to students, that is going to tell them they have to accept Jesus Christ into their lives or they're going to spend eternity in hell, and may or may not teach evolution or any of the other things that are sometimes controversial for fundamentalist Christians. They want to do all that, and they want us, the public, to just hand them money to run their school any way that they want.
So there's a question
of distinction.
And one thing too, I mean, you can make the argument for vouchers by saying the federal government gives scholarships to students who go to almost every private religious school in the country, and that's true. Hillsdale excluded, but if you if you want, if you get accepted to Notre Dame, you can get federal funding to go to Notre Dame. I mean, that's as a student. But Notre Dame is not a public school. It is not part of the Indiana state tax dollars do not go to fund the operations of Notre Dame University.
So is it a volume question? Is that the size of the school they're wanting to build is beyond what they know will be available?
No, I think, look, what's going on here is, actually very similarly to the immigration, the undocumented students bill that we were talking about earlier. This is not a real attempt to start a school. I'm not saying they don't really want to start a school. I think they probably do, but they know that under the existing legal framework they can't. This is trying to fundamentally, they want to get this case to the Supreme Court, which is why they've immediately, they filed their letter of intent with the school board, Wilberforce did, on November 25th. The school system hasn't even responded to this yet because
the deadline was the 3rd.
Right. And so before the school system had any kind of chance to even respond to the letter of intent, which there isn't really a response to the letter of intent. The way this works is you file a letter of intent, and that means that you are going to file an application by, I think, February 1st is the deadline that you have to get your application in. But Wilberforce is not doing that. They haven't completed an application. They sent in a letter, and then 5 days later, they filed a federal lawsuit saying they're being discriminated against, even though nobody has actually ruled against them in any way. What they're saying is we're not even going to bother filling out an application because we refuse to certify that we won't be religious. Now, one possible defense to that for the county is that you don't even have standing to file a lawsuit here because nobody has actually told you can't do anything. Now, they can argue that, it's that just even the mere act of being forced to require or being forced to verify that they're not going to be religious is an imposition. But, a response to that could be, well, fill out the application, don't certify that. Yeah. But fill out the rest of the application, because the reality is charter school applications are very thorough and complicated. Mm-hmm. You have to do a whole lot of work to put together a charter school application that's going to have and it's not just verifying that you're not religious. You have to show what is your curriculum, what's your funding mechanism, what's your governance. There's a whole bunch of things you have to meet. The Wilberforce folks are just skipping all that. Yeah. They're not doing any of that. They're basically not doing any real work here. They sent in a letter. They immediately filed a lawsuit, and their hope is to just plow this straight up to the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. And what they're really looking to do is overturn a 75-plus year precedent that says you cannot publicly fund an explicitly religious school that is going to be spending all of its time proselytizing its specific faith and ideology to its students, that is a violation of the First Amendment protection against government establishment of religion. There was a very similar case to this that came out of Oklahoma last year, And in that case, the Oklahoma state government wanted to allow a Christian school to open as a charter school. They got sued, and under Supreme Court precedent, the lower court said, no, you can't do this. It went to the Supreme Court, and that resulted in a 4-4 split decision because Justice Amy Coney Barrett, for some reasons that, technical reasons, she recused herself because she had some connections to that specific case, which led to the 4-4 tie. And that, just kind of left the status quo in place. And so immediately Christian conservatives around the country said, all right, let's get another case back up there that Justice Barrett can participate in, on the assumption that Barrett, who is a Catholic conservative and has been friendly to, religious interests in other decisions, that she'll provide that fifth vote. And so that's really like, yes, this case could maybe eventually lead to somebody creating a real school in Knoxville called the Wilberforce Academy, but that's not actually what they're trying to do. What this really is a vehicle to get back to the Supreme Court and try to, what I would say fundamentally change the concept of public education in America, what it's for, what it does, and why we do it.
Yeah, and one thing to the point about the couldn't they just open their own school? Well, the executive director of Wilberforce Academy is a principal of River's Edge Christian Academy, which is a private school. It's kind of a regular school, homeschooling hybrid school. It is a school in West Knoxville. Well, actually, they've got 3 campuses in Knoxville. One of them is in West Knoxville, or I think 2 of them are in West Knoxville. But the executive director of Wilberforce is a principal of a private Christian school that charges very little tuition, but does accept vouchers.
Right,
So.
They are eligible for the vouchers as it is. Yeah,
So,
and so just like as we saw with the vouchers, like a lot of what this is about is people want to. A lot of these things get positioned as parents' rights. Oh well, parents should have the right to send their kids to whatever school they want. Sure, and in fact they do. You can even homeschool your children if you want. I was homeschooled up to about 3rd grade. You're allowed. Nobody says you can't go to whatever school you want. What they really want is to take taxpayer money, to take everybody's, the big pool of money that we as taxpayers contribute toward public education, and say, we want to take this money for ourselves, not to teach the state mandated curriculum, not to meet the standards that have been long set as a minimum that you have to meet in order to qualify for public education. We just want to take this money and we want to teach our kids anything at all that we want to teach them, including that the universe is, 10,000 years old or whatever else might meet their particular religious ideology, and we don't want the public to have any say over how their own money gets spent on public education. Like, that's what I think they're trying to do.
Well, yes. Anyway, I won't go there. I was about to make a really bad joke in transition to our next topic, but I won't. Our next topic is the settlement in a lawsuit that involving hemp-derived projects.
Merry Christmas, me.
We actually have an in-studio expert, Lord Seth Barber, who, among his many business endeavors, is involved in the peddling of legal hemp-derived products.
Yes. My business card has gotten so awkward, I just put a QR code on it to a page that gets a link to all the different businesses that I'm in. So, I mean, if we've talked about it on here plenty, I own the series of e-vape stores. We have 3 locations in town. You should check them out. We sell many things, not just hemp-derived products. But this has been a very interesting follow for me over the year because it's direct business interest. But the long and short of it is this past year's session, Briggs and the state legislature first wanted to move regulation of the hemp industry in Tennessee out of Department of Agriculture into TABC, the Alcoholic Beverage Commission. And in doing so, setting up a framework, changing the tax stuff on it and stuff like that. And so those of us that have been existing for a while with the Department of Ag license that we were required to get from a couple of sessions ago argued that in the bill that was written this year, it states that under the licensure, blah, 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 blah. It was kind of awkwardly worded in a way that basically says, if you have an ag license, keep going by the ag rules, but when you get your ABC license, you have to transition over to the new rules. Well, the timing is the ABC license comes into effect is a July to July. It's a fiscal year license. So it was the ag license. So all of us that were operating got our new ag license in June of this past summer, giving us an ag license from July 25 or from July 1, 25 to June 30, 26. And so the long and the short of it is the hemp industry argued that, it says we have to follow the rules of the license we have, and it says we don't have to get the ABC license until our ag one expires. So we're going to operate under ag rules until our ag license expires in June 30th of 26. And so essentially what was initially stated to be in place January 1, that was the complete restriction of THCA and THCP products in Tennessee is now shifted back to June 30th.
Yeah.
I think that's the long and short. I'm sure I missed a few of the details, but
no. Well, basically the way that everything was written, the transition allowed you to work under the ag rules until June 1st, but the Alcoholic Beverage Commission is supposed to take over January 1st. So there's 6 months there of kind of the legal limbo. The one thing also from that's a regulatory kind of bureaucratic thing. The more thing that hits the bottom line in the business was was banning THCA. So which is a derivative that. And you can speak to this better than I can. It's legal in Tennessee, but when it's just sitting there, when it gets heated up, it actually acts a little bit more like regular marijuana, which is which is not legal in Tennessee. So
there's a formula with how many milligrams of THCA converts in the heating process converts to a certain number of milligrams of Delta 9, which Delta 9 is legal over a certain percentage by volume. When it gets so basically they set up that formula and the formula gets it to where you basically have to work backwards from the Delta 9 limit. And you have to work the formula backwards, and so you get to such a minuscule microgram level of THCA, which still would technically be legal, but it'd be in micrograms, and therefore
it wouldn't satisfy your customers.
Right, pointless to the end user to continue down that road. And I think one of the weirdisms to this whole thing too is it's only the vapor smoke products that are popular. So all the edibles that you're seeing out and about and stuff like that, they will continue to stay. There's some changing in the tax format, which is one of the ones I haven't gotten a clear answer to yet. Is they're taking that from a retail tax where you're paying an additional percentage like sales tax as a customer into a wholesale tax as part of this, and it's very unclear to me at this point whether that still goes into effect January 1 or I still have to deal with that till June. It should come out in the wash. Your end use price as a consumer is not going to change. It's just where the tax comes out, kind of thing. And so there's a lot of moving pieces that aren't really clear settling this moving forward. But
and then there's the federal picture, which is
right.
super cloudy because as of the budget bill,
cloudy, good pun. I like that.
As of the budget bill that just got passed last month, all hemp-derived THC nationally will be illegal starting July 1st. And so I think...
Well, my understanding is that it kicks in a year from the date that was signed. So it'd be,
is it a year from it?
It'd be November, so we'd have this weird little middle ground from July 1 to November,
right.
which would keep the the edibles and stuff that's currently on the market legal till then, and then it was basically they redefined.
And those are like if people get Delta 8 edibles or whatever.
It's Delta 9 edibles. It's all there's all sorts of subcannabinoids in the edibles. Most of the edibles that you're seeing on the market now are Delta 9 edibles because of the definition that that the federal government works off of, that the state references. It's a milligram. It's a weight by volume, and so if you have a gummy or a soda or whatever, that's a lot of volume of gummy and sugar.
Right. The THC
and flavor
that's in there is a tiny.
The THC
percentage.
is a tiny percentage of the total, but a functional percentage of the total for those who enjoy the products. And there's some of that shifts around as far as per serving limits and labeling requirements. That's going to come into effect over this next year as well. And so it's a little bit of a mess, and there's different bodies that are working in different directions on this thing. The state's alcohol lobby, for lack of a better word, has been a big player against parts of this, but for other parts of this, because they're trying to take up the edible space to make up for their loss in alcohol sales. But they've been shifting a little bit more towards trying to keep it fully legal, but then keep it in the 3-tier distribution system, which lets them start taking over the distribution part. So I anticipate that come July 1st, nothing about what we expect to happen is what's going to be happening.
Well, and we have a whole session, legislative session,
right,
for things to change in.
Right, because and from Briggs, who was the key to this one that we did earlier this year, one of his arguments was always, I just want Tennessee to be in line with federal law. Well, if he stays with that argument, the new federal law will be a full redefinition, which would fully ban kind of everything. And so if he sticks with that mindset, I wouldn't be surprised for him to introduce a new one that's just a full, it's all gone.
Yeah. But there is expectation that Congress is probably going to come back and look at that. Certainly there's a lot of pressure on them to do so.
Right, because there's a huge election next year all over the place that apparently matters to a lot of people. And so we expect a lot of things moving and changing between there. And so it's on a personal note.
And overall, THC legalization in various forms remains pretty popular in most polls. Like most Americans, including even in very red states, most people are pretty comfortable with the idea of legal THC.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, my limited research has been the worst you get out of most people if you talk to them about it is apathy. There's a very small percentage of people who are truly against the idea. Most people, it's like, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I don't have to deal with people that use this product. Not dissimilar to a lot of people's thoughts on alcohol. There is that contingent that's way against it, but most people just don't care. And then there's a good set of people that want to be able to get these products. And I can speak to that at length, but I'll cut that off here.
Well, all right. Well, we got a couple other items that we're going to hit on real quickly. One is the Tennessee Valley Authority found out that it is going to receive a $400 million. That's right, $400 million, almost $500 million dollar grant from the Department of Energy for its small modular reactor project in Oak Ridge at the Clinch River site. That is a big step forward for that. That is one of the things that TVA, that is the nation's first, will be the nation's first modular reactor, small modular reactor that will be run for commercial reasons. And that's a big deal. TVA is really making a push on that, making a push on nuclear energy. The state of Tennessee, under Governor Bill Lee, who set aside, I think, $50 million for this project a couple of years ago to try to help TVA push it through, is a big proponent of nuclear energy. It's funny how nuclear energy has gone from something that is very dangerous that could possibly kill us all to a viable non-carbon emitting power source, which it also is. And so it's a quote unquote clean energy source in the context of global warming, and TVA is moving forward these modular reactors. This is they're a lot, in some ways. I hope they don't. In some ways, they're like mobile homes. They're built in a factory They're put together and transported, or at least most of the components are transported to a site and then put together there. It's not, there are many cost-saving aspects to this, but it is essentially there's a factory that builds this. It takes it to the site, puts it down. You can put 2, 3, 4 of these modular reactors together. Any one modular reactor is much smaller, produces a lot less energy than a big unit at a light water reactor like Watts Bar. Anyway.
How actually physically large are they? Because I feel like the way they get talked about, it's almost like you'll be able to carry one in your handbag. Like how big?
Well,
are these
it's not quite that. It's not like a little generator, in your garage or anything. But it is much smaller. I don't have the exact figures. I did it one time, but I've slept since then. And but you can put. I mean, the breeder reactor, original breeder reactor that was going to go on this site back in the 70s, would have been the size of a regular nuclear reactor like Watts Bar, although I think it was only going to be one unit. So this is a large footprint property, and they can get at least 4 on there. And they are. I went to the site a couple of years ago when they were first talking about this, and they had kind of staked out where things were going to go. It's not big. It is a couple of football fields, maybe in area. So at least that site where things were actually going to be done. Now the site itself is larger. There will be other things, but it's pretty small. And you got to remember that essentially modular reactors what run nuclear powered submarines. I mean, that's essentially what they're doing is they're taking that type of power production and adapting it to commercial power production. So. But anyway, TVA gets $400 million of that. That's $400 million that will not come from ratepayers to go to this, although it will come from taxpayers. So we all pay for it in one way or the other, as they say. So anyway, TVA is hoping to have the modular reactors. There'll be at least 2 of them. Online in the early 2030s. So that's 5, 6, 7 years from now. They're hoping to go ahead and have these online and producing energy for the Tennessee Valley. And the other thing we want to talk about before we run on to other things is kind of an interesting tidbit that came out this past week. County Commissioner Larsen Jay, who is running for Knox County Mayor, is going to host a veterans luncheon early next year, and the guest of honor is going to be speaking there is former Marine General John Kelly, who is best known outside of military circles as the former White House Chief of Staff to President Donald Trump in his first term. He was also the Homeland Security Director for a bit before he became Chief of Staff. And he was fired in 2018 and has since become a very vocal critic of of President Trump. And it's kind of interesting that Jay is a Republican and is running for the top executive office in Knox County, as you know, and hopes to win it, and is running against two others for that post, Betsy Henderson and Kim Frazier. And Henderson is a very conservative candidate, Jay is perceived to be a little bit more moderate. But it's kind of an interesting choice of people to come and speak. Granted, I mean, he was a 4-star general in the Marines. He was the commander of the Central Command, which was responsible for any military goings on in South and Central America and the Caribbean. So, he was a very respected in military circles, and would be a natural to speak to a veterans event. But it is notable that he also had this post-military career in which he hitched his wagon to President Trump, and then blew up said wagon.
Yeah, I mean, he's called Trump a fascist and an authoritarian, and this is not a campaign event for Jay. It's an event he's organizing for veterans, and I think only veterans are going to be invited. Only veterans can go.
It's
not like some big public rally or something, and I would imagine that Kelly may well mostly focus on talking about, it's probably not going to be a super political, explicitly speech or event, but one of the challenges for Jay coming into this county mayor's race is that he has long been sort of at odds with some of the more far-right elements of the local Republican Party. I mean, he ran against he was primaried when he ran for re-election to his county commission seat by a fairly MAGA-friendly candidate, Steve Weiner. And he won that race easily. And so, I think especially running against somebody like Henderson, who's clearly staking out the quote unquote true conservative in the race territory, there was a question of whether Jay would feel compelled to, try to court that side of the party more. And this feels like a sign that no, he's just going to kind of continue doing and being what he has done, and it's worked for him. He has already won 2 countywide elections to county commission, and so he obviously feels like he has a sense of the electorate and what people will support.
Yeah, well, and your point you made about what Kelly will speak about. I would anticipate it will be military stuff. That's not the point. The point is that it's Kelly himself coming. I mean, if you someone invited Barack Obama to come and speak about baseball, he's going to talk about baseball, and that may be all he talks about. But there's also a message that sends, or could send, or could be seen, be perceived as sending, and that.
Well, we perceive it that way,
we perceive it that way. Yeah, that's why we're talking about it. And one thing that was interesting was in the press release announcing this event. Jay put in there that. If you wanted to see General Kelly's official military biography, you can, and have provided a link to that, which it doesn't really go into the whole Trump White House and political post-military career that he's had. So anyway, that's just kind of an aside. Like you said, it's for veterans only. We won't be going, not because we don't care about veterans, but because it's a private event. But anyway, that's just one of the interesting things that happen.
Yep, especially as we start looking ahead to those elections coming up soon.
Yes, absolutely. And that's everything that we're going to talk about from last week, which if you are a subscriber to Compass Knox.com. You probably already know. If you're not a subscriber, that's where you can go to subscribe. Anyway, we also went to a parade, the Rocky Hill Christmas Parade, and we interviewed a couple of folks there, a couple of political folk, and we have those interviews coming up next.
And we are here at the Rocky Hill Christmas Parade. We're actually over at the Rocky Hill Ball Fields, where everybody is marshaling to get together to get the parade started. And our friend and producer Seth Barber has his own float here for Barbarian Productions, as well as his other businesses that he operates. And Scott and I are just kind of observing the scene and maybe going to talk to a couple of folks as they walk by.
Yeah, we hope to be able to talk to 2 or 3 folks, maybe not. Depends if we can grab them here. I think we're going to get Becky Duncan Massey to come and talk to us a little bit about some health and transportation issues and Christmas.
That's where we are. That's what we're doing. We're getting a little chilly.
It is a little cold, and but it's okay. It is that time of year. And we've been joined by State Senator Becky Duncan Massey. Becky, welcome.
I'm glad to be with you.
Well, you've gotten out on this chilly afternoon, but this is your neighborhood pretty much, isn't it? And,
absolutely. We've kind of lived in this area since we've been married, and next year will be our 50th anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
But my sister actually moved out here in 1966. So
wow.
I've been coming out here even before I got married.
Well, all right. Well, do you come to the parade every year?
Absolutely. It's one that I won't miss unless I had to be out of town. But even then, one year I had to be out of town, but we still participated.
All right. Well, great. We'll talk a little bit of business stuff. We've got news that there may be a mental health facility built into the Empath Center in North Knoxville. Tell us about what's going on there.
Okay, well, this is something I've been obviously working on for quite some time, and this idea actually I've worked on with the commissioner a year and a half or so on that idea, but building a new hospital here, because we had her do Lieutenant Governor McNally, Senator Briggs, and I asked her to do a needs-based study on mental health beds. And it came back that we're 50 beds short now. We'll be 100 beds short by 2050. So the next step is, okay, we got the data. Now let's see what we can do to fix it. Mm-hmm. Getting a whole hospital built takes one time, even once you get the funding. It could take 5 years maybe after you get the funding approved. So, we were still looking at other options, and the commissioner came to me one day and said, I've got an idea where we can get some mental health beds, treatment beds, that we could get much quicker. And then we can work to do the hospital. That gives us more time to build a hospital. Mm-hmm. So this would be 30 mental health treatment beds on the second floor above the Empath Center. There at the old St. Mary's site.
Yeah, these would be long-term inpatient beds?
They're longer term than going in for 48 hours.
Right.
I mean, it's basically hospitalization, mental health hospitalization doesn't need to be, I'm living there. It needs to be more how long it needs to take to get somebody stabilized, whether either they could go back into their community to their home and do outpatient treatment, or somebody that may need to be stabilized but then go into a supported living situation. And either way, it could take 2 months, it could take 5 months. I mean, but it's not year-round living.
Okay. And if this gets approved, and how long would it take to to get this done? Because you said 5 years or so for a full-blown hospital. This is a renovation of an existing space.
Well, and like I say, I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
And basically the process is the Commissioner of Mental Health and Substance Abuse requested the funds for this when she made her budget presentation to the governor. So we will know the 1st of February when he presents his budget if he included that in his first budget. There's always the supplemental budget that comes out a little later. Then there's some legislative requests. I'm going to be kind of rallying the legislators in the 22 county region and asking them to all sign on a letter the first of the year to the governor requesting that he does put this in his budget. So at the point of, let's just say it got approved in the budget. That would be go into effect July 1st. They will start the renovation. I would be hopeful that within a year it could get done. Now, if they put me in charge of doing the renovation and everything, I could probably do it quicker, a little bit cheaper, because I did run a nonprofit, so I do know how to do things a little bit more economically. But they won't let me do that. So.
Well, what other things are coming up in the new year that folks will want to know about?
I mean, we go back into session January 13th, so right now we're talking to a lot of folks about different pieces of legislation that they're interested in. The challenge this year is, used to be the House had unlimited number of bills and they went to 15. Last year they went to 12, and since this is the second year of the cycle, they say they're going to allow 10 bills each. So when people have come and talked to me about legislation, I say, get a House sponsor first, then you can come back and talk to me. But I think that probably one of the bigger challenges, all the COVID money has kind of gone away, that we had to invest in a lot of good projects around the state, and revenue's kind of flattening out. So actually our revenue growth is expected to be just slightly less than the 3% average inflation rate. So I think we'll see less recurring dollars on new projects than we will maybe one-time money. Two things that I know that they'll be discussed a little more this year is we have the rural health transformation grants coming down from the federal government, and I think we'll see some really good projects put in place with those funds. And those funds are over 5 years, but if you do a good job the first year, you might have a chance to get a little more the second year. So I've been talking to the Commissioner of Health and the Governor's office about some of those ideas. And then I know there's going to be discussions a little bit around the education savings accounts again this year. And there's some people who'd like to do it away with it. There's some people who'd like it to just grow just like it's written into the law. There's some people, I think, that want to grow it more than were written in the law because of the vast numbers of folks that were interested in applying for it this past year that didn't get accepted. So that will be a discussion too. That won't go through my committee.
Right.
And then, as always, I'm always looking at transportation funding. We've got a study going on that will come back sometime next year. I think more in the late next year that we'll have in place for the incoming governor. Ultimately we've got to fix our transportation funding formula because it's not an appreciating revenue source. And to meet the needs of our growing state, we've got to do something.
Well, I know TDOT had hearing or public meetings on the I-40 corridor. That project. Tell us a little bit about where that stands right now, as you understand it.
Well, it was funny. Former State Rep Jimmy Matlock called me up and says, "Becky, why are you having public meetings? We've talked about this for years. We know what we need to do." I said, "Jimmy, the NEPA process, which is the federal government process we have to go through, they require the public meetings, so we have to do them." This one was more getting input from community members. And then they'll kind of digest all that with all the information studies they have. There will be another round of public meetings to kind of present what they've come up with. So the options, some of the things that have been talked about is moving the weigh stations outside of Knox County, some kind of expansion of the roads there. I don't know if that would be a choice lane, but to be a choice lane, we have to have an investor that's willing to come in and pay for it, which is always nice when somebody else pays for something, but or if it'd just be a simple expansion. But either way, we've got the study and the two interchanges at Watt Road and Campbell Station are funded. Right now, the expansion is not funded, so that's why we've got to get something creative in here to help make that happen sooner than later.
Now, if this whole corridor project, and I know it's a big project, is that going to make the Alcoa Highway project look like just a simple repaving?
Well, whenever we finish the whole Alcoa Highway project, it keeps, when you're having to move a mountain, that causes some issues.
Yeah.
So it's challenging, but, it's like I said, we've got projects all over the state that need funding. And, when you're a growing state and then the eastern corridor's growing, we're putting more wear and tear on it. It's keeping our gas tax revenue stable because more people are buying gas, but the price of building roads is going up. So, and then they're tearing up easier.
Yeah.
So that's why we're looking at some things. I'm actually going to a meeting this week, I'm heading out Monday for a meeting on alternative transportation funding. I did a 1.5-year fellows with them, and they're having a full day meeting up in Vermont, and it's cold. This is warm compared to where it's going to be on Tuesday, but looking at ideas, what other states are doing, you don't always have to reinvent the wheel.
Oh, one thing, and this will be our last transportation question.
Sure.
It was kind of a fantasy idea that popped up the last
tunnel?
couple of weeks. The tunnel that
From Nashville to
the
Knoxville?
Boring Company talked about building from Nashville to Knoxville. How much of that is fantasy, and how much of that is?
Well, I'm not saying that it's not. I mean, it could be real, but probably not in my lifetime. So, but they're a good company. It's amazing the way they do things. I actually went out to where they build the tunnels out in Austin. I just happen to have a granddaughter there, and a daughter. So I used that as an excuse to go visit them. But while I was there, I wanted to go see how they're made because I really am not an engineer. I need to see it visually. And it really was fascinating seeing how they do things and how brilliant they are. So, the tunnel in Nashville is not going to solve all the transportation problems, but it's all our transportation issues and challenges. It's going to take multiple things. No one thing's going to be the solution. So I think we just got to think outside the box, be willing to do it. And when somebody comes to you and says, we'll pay for it, okay.
All right.
Bring it on.
Well, all right. Well, thanks for joining us. The last question, which isn't a transportation question or even a political question, what's your New Year's resolution going to be?
Oh, gracious. I don't do resolutions, really. I just try to keep my head above water and, but to continue to serve the folks of our area. And, I told somebody, they go, why do you do this? And I said, when you can pass legislation that saves lives, that's pretty good job. And, I love the people I work with. I pass almost every bill I pass unanimous. And, you work together, you treat people respectfully. And you listen to everybody, whether as far as your constituents, whether they agree with you on that or not or whatever. But you give people the dignity of listening to their comments, and as long as it's respectful, I'll meet with or listen to anybody. Now, if they're hateful, I'm sorry, I don't put up with that, but respectful, and I'll treat everybody respectful. So anyway, thank you all. Appreciate y'all, and have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. You have a Merry Christmas as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, now we're joined by Betsy Henderson.
Hello.
Hello, Betsy. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Betsy is the member of the school board and running for Knox County mayor.
Yes, sir.
This year.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, welcome. welcome to the parade. What do you think about the parade?
I'm so excited to be here. Merry Christmas. Thank you for having me. The Rocky Hill Parade is just such a staple in the community, so I'm so excited to be here. I've always come as a parent with my children, so this is our first year participating in the parade, so I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, yeah. Well, great. Of course, this year coming up, you're going to be running for Knox County Mayor.
Yes.
So I assume your New Year's resolution is to win.
That is the goal. That is a good New Year's resolution. Yeah, we've already hit the ground running. We're door knocking. We're doing meet and greets. We're out in the community. We've got, I think, 3 or 4 more parades after this one. So we are out and about.
All right.
I know January, it's going to get even crazier. So
absolutely. Well, one thing that I was curious about was how different is it running county-wide, because your school board seat is a district seat.
Right, yes.
And of course, county mayor obviously is county-wide. How's
scale.
that?
It's been good, but yeah, you are right. I currently represent District 6, which is Hardin Valley, Carnes to the Pleasant Ridge, Norwood community, and now running county-wide, so it is definitely a larger scale effort. More door knockers, more money, just a lot of, but we have a lot of good people that have come around us, so it's been great.
Well, I guess though that doing parades is kind of the fun part of running.
Yes, I do love it. I was just thinking that earlier. We were walking around by Butler and Bailey Market because they have a whole kind of like a Santa's village over there, and just the excitement and just seeing all the families. This is the fun part. But it is funny. I was thinking this morning at the Carnes Fair, the past 5 years, we just did one parade. And this year, we're doing mini parades. So,
well, multiplying the fun.
Exactly. I do love the Christmas season, so I love this part.
Well, you talked about it getting crazy going forward. It is going to be kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Especially you've got your school board duties as well.
Yes.
And the
double
running
duty
for office.
Yeah. I think it's going to be an exciting year because, there's so many candidates on the ballot. And so I'm very hopeful that there is a good turnout come May when the primary is on May 5th. So I'm hoping for a good turnout. And I think it's an exciting time for our county.
Well, all right, great. Anything else you want to talk about?
I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And thanks for having me again.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us and enjoy the parade.
Thank you. You too.
Well, this week on the civic calendar, it's going to be busy. Lots of stuff going on. County Commission is going to have a full day on Monday at 1 o'clock. There will be a public hearing and a special voting session on an interim replacement for General Sessions Court Judge Andrew Jackson VI, who is stepping down, retiring, and the candidates will be who want the interim appointment, which will only last until next year, next August. So they will be able to speak to the County Commission, and the County Commission will then vote on a replacement. One of their own, Rhonda Lee, has put her hat in the ring for that, but we will be interested to see that. The general, this is a judgeship, very it's not really a lucrative position, but it is certainly a prestige position that attorneys who aspire to judgeships, that's
it's not exactly low paid either. It's it's a reasonably paid and very stable and secure position.
It's not like a CEO of a company, but of a big company. More than the CEO of Compass makes, I can tell you that. Anyway, do
we have a CEO?
We don't really have one, no. But anyway, that whoever gets the interim appointment, assuming that they would also want to be elected to that position, will certainly be in a more high-profile position as the incumbent when the election does occur next year. Anyway.
But that's going to be a pretty quick turnaround, right? Because they would have to run in, assuming there would be multiple, I'm just taking it as a given that they're going to appoint a Republican to this position, whether it's Rhonda Lee or somebody else, because it's a Republican majority on County Commission. Whoever gets that appointment is only appointed through basically about 8 or 9 months, however long it takes for the next county cycle to start in September. And they would probably be facing a Republican primary immediately, like in May. So they would have some advantage in the sense that on the ballot, I guess their name might show up as I don't even know if the ballot would reflect that they're the incumbent. Doesn't reflect the incumbent. But people would know that they're the incumbent. They could already be calling themselves.
People who vote in the primary will.
Yeah, and they can use that re-elect phrase on their signs. Re-elect me, even though they haven't been elected yet. So some advantage, but whoever gets appointed to it, assuming they want the job on a longer term basis, would basically immediately have to turn around and start a political campaign.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That is just the first. That's just getting the day started for County Commission. They also have an optional agenda review meeting at 4, where they talk about the agenda for the meeting this month. This is all happening a week earlier than it normally does, so because of Christmas holidays. And then they also at 5 o'clock will meet to vote on zoning matters and final votes on those. On Tuesday, City Council meets, and the agenda's not doesn't look to be too contentious. They are going to be voting on appropriating $700,000 to the Knox County Planning Commission to update the city's comprehensive plan. The city's kind of done this backwards from the way the county is doing it now. The city has already redone its zoning code. This is going to put the comprehensive plan in alignment with the zoning code. County Commission has passed Knox County Commission has passed a new general plan, and now they're filling in the details with the Unified Development Ordinance this year. But anyway, the city, the Planning Commission, they're going to be hiring a consultant that will be getting most of that money, and they will be looking at updating that comprehensive development plan for the city, which of course isn't as kind of contentious, I think, as the counties is, because there is not as much undeveloped land in the city to develop. So it's more of a redevelopment comprehensive plan. Also, CAT's getting several $1 million in federal grants they're going to be approving. Be various other things. The City Council takes care of zoning matters, for instance, at their regular meeting in Knox County Commission, and they'll be doing that too.
And also, I believe this will be the final City Council meeting for 5 incumbents who are all rolling off.
That is true. 5 members, a majority of the panel, are all subject to term limits and could not run for re-election this year, and this is their last regularly scheduled meeting. The new their successors will be sworn in on the 20th, and so we will see. You always wonder heading into things like this. This is the last time that these folks are going to be, given a platform where everybody has to listen to them, and at least for a while. And so it's be interesting to see how much of it is how much they take advantage of that. So the agenda suggests that it would not be a long meeting, but they could each of the council members, especially those who are leaving, could make it a point of personal privilege to talk about their time in office or whatever they want to talk about. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. Again, this is a majority that is rolling off. So the next council, a majority will be newcomers. Also, for the first time in 4 cycles, there will be a majority, be a male majority on on city council. Had a female majority for a while that had become so routine we didn't even comment on it. So anyway, city council meets. The beer board also meets right before city council. Beer board at 5. City council at 6 on Tuesday. Then on Thursday afternoon, 1:30, the planning commission meets. The various and sundry subdivisions and plans and all kinds of things that they always do every month. Two notable things. There are 2 developments adjacent to, or practically adjacent to, to Covenant Health Park. The new stadium it just completed its first year in operation as the home of the Knoxville Smokies and one Knoxville SC soccer team, which council is going to be, and county commission both are going to be honoring for winning their USL League One championship this year and their first year at Covenant Health Park. Anyway, there is a restaurant called Jonathan's Grill, which is a sports bar and restaurant based in Middle Tennessee. It's kind of a regional chain. Tennessee and Alabama right now is where their restaurants are located. Kind of an upscale sports bar, large building. Will be going up kind of the first baseline extended across Willow Avenue from the stadium and across from the plaza there that's along the first base line and the Delaney building. So Johnson Sports Bar, they are asking for a rezoning. They want this to be a planned development, which would allow them a little more flexibility in what they build there. The building is going to be big, 20,000 square feet, 3 stories. But they will have your upscale sports bar fare, and one thing that they want to do is have late night happy hours for all the folks in the hospitality industry to come by and enjoy discounted drinks. It's kind of interesting late at night.
Cutting into Seth's business a little bit there.
No, they're way over there. That doesn't bother me at all. I don't think that's. There's some technicalities of legality there, but I'll leave that alone.
That's for them to worry about.
Yeah.
Then on the other side of the outfield of the stadium, the over on Georgia Street at the corner of Georgia, Georgia and I can't remember the name of the side street. Anyway, it is basically a block away from the stadium. To the east, there is a Pittsburgh-based developer who is, and we'd reported this earlier as well. Who's going to be developing a up to 300 unit apartment building on the side. It also needs to be rezoned, and they'll be asking for that. So that would add 300 more residential units to the area immediately surrounding the stadium. Yet again, more of the private development that they have hoped for is apparently going to be coming in. So there'll be a sports bar and a housing complex there, an apartment complex nearby in the next couple of years, provided they get these rezonings done and all the other, they do all the other dottings of I's and crossing of T's. Anyway, so we'll be keeping tabs on all that stuff this week. Again, it's going to be busy as all these government entities try to get everything done before the Christmas holidays. You mentioned City Council being their last city council meeting. They're cramming a month's worth of business into. Right,
they won't meet again until January.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're not going to meet in regular session until January. So, anyway, that is everything that happened last week that we covered. Of interest, not everything we covered, but the things that we thought were most interesting that we covered, and the things we're looking forward to this week. We're going to be. And there will be more that will happen, as is the nature of news. So, That'll be it for this week. Want to thank Lord Seth Barber for everything he does for us, including giving us a ride in the Rocky Hill Parade on Saturday. Also, Jesse, thanks for coming in again, and
happy to be here.
And we're happy to have you. And we will be back next week for another installment of Compass Points.
CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more. And many thanks to William Wright for composing our theme song. Compass Points is a partnership of Barking Shark Media and Barbarian Productions, and recorded by Lord Seth A. Barber at Barbarian Studios, Knoxville, Tennessee.